Combat medics are valued members of most warbands hailing from the Faithful Nations. They range from the dedicated Sisters of St. Cosmas to the Ducal Medical Corps of New Antioch. Whatever their origin, combat medics accompany their units to the front lines, leaving the long-term care of the wounded to army doctors operating in the forward surgical teams. Combat medics also bear the responsibility of gathering the dog tags of fallen soldiers and reporting casualties to their unit commanders. Rather than providing any protection from enemy fire, indeed, heretic snipers are infamous for targeting medical personnel. The combat medic insignia bearing the rod of Asclepius is there to help their comrades identify them in the heat of battle and call for their aid. Since the followers of the heretic lords, let alone the undead of the Black Grail, cannot be expected to honor any kind of symbol of medical neutrality, combat medics often go into battle heavily armed and armoured, and take part in active combat in addition to their battlefield medical duties. Combat medics can often be found fighting their enemies in bitter close-quarters combat for the possession of the fallen and the wounded, in order to prevent them from being used by both the court and the heretics in rituals of dark worship. Here, their famed Misericordia daggers have proven their mettle time and again, taking out even the heavily armoured anointed, dragged down by the combined efforts of brave yeomen. The Free State of Prussia boasts a cadre of well-trained and highly experienced veteran frontline medics, often well-versed both in human and veterinary aid. Many Prussian combat medics are former lay members of the knightly orders such as Johanniter or Malteser Orden, who still maintain hospices in memory of their original purpose. Prussian combat medics of the Stormtruppen are selected from amongst the very best and the most athletic in the entire armed medical service. They follow the Lazarus doctrine, a protocol which dictates that the priority of the Krieg Sanitär is to return soldiers to combat immediately, using any means at their disposal. The Free State has the most advanced chemical warfare program in Europa, and it provides its combat medics with an excellent kit to get even the most severely wounded soldiers back on their feet and into the fray once more. The bread bag straps each soldier carries are used to create tourniquets, followed by an arsenal of pain-numbing, adrenaline-pumping chemicals to get soldiers back into the action. They also carry mustard paper, bottles of ammonia, Pervitin, and many other tinctures to revive the fallen, supporting the Prussian doctrine of overwhelming opponents with lightning assaults. While putting such extra strain on wounded soldiers may often cause their unfortunate demise later on due to blood loss or exhaustion, it is an undeniable fact that the combat medic creed has turned many a battle in favour of the Free State. Alrighty, extra combat medic lore with a Prussian twist on it this week, which is kind of interesting and fun. But anyway, let's talk about some interesting bits and pieces from the lore. So first of all, one of the things I found really, really interesting was the rod of Asclepius. So that's used in the modern day, basically, like right now, by lots of, hospitals and medical companies and things like that. It is a obvious reference to the Greek god of Asclepius, who's a deity that's associated with healing and medicine. So obviously, healing and medically inclined companies and people will adopt it. So that's what the combat medics have done in the world of Trench Crusade. What I find just, I guess, interesting and nice is that it both acknowledges the existence of the older religions, the older pantheons that we would deem to be myth, just because they're very, very old in the modern age. We don't entertain them as things that really exist. But obviously they in that same way, in the Trench Crusade universe, they look at the older mythologies and the older pantheons for inspiration, for you know, some symbolism, which is pretty cool. They wouldn't like believe in those gods the same way as nobody believes in Asclepius now. It's not like a doctor rolls into a surgery and goes, "Oh, I better say my prayers to Asclepius." But it's just kind of cool, and it lets you know if you want to call your homebrew or your little unit or your battalion or whatever the Sons of Thor, that you can do that, and they can, you know, that's just the thing they can do. Like, not a problem. So yeah, I like it. It's pretty cool overall, and the fact that like heretic snipers and whatnot would literally go out of their way to clip you because you are a combat medic just makes perfect sense. So up next, the Misericordia. That's a word that people are likely to be aware of because it crops up in wargaming from time to time. It's basically just a Latin word. It means mercy. Oftentimes in the grimdarkier, grimderpier universes, the reason people will call a weapon a Misericordia, and it's strongly implied here, is that if the combat medic decides you're just never getting back up and you're just going to lie there bleeding for 10 minutes and die, I'm taking it that the strong implication is that they just do it. Like, they just deal with you there and then, because it potentially stops some issues that are pretty unique maybe to the world of Trench Crusade, such as like being used in the last moments of your life somehow, being damned, or being fuel, like goetic fuel, or being possessed, or there's any number of things that could technically happen in the world of Trench Crusade. So I'm assuming the combat medics are very happy to, in the same way as they'll stab an anointed when people trip them up, they'll stab you if you're not going to get back up no matter what they do. Which I like. I mean, you know, it's a brutal universe, it's a brutal world, I like it. So the word Johanniter came up, which appears to be this, basically the Knights Hospitalier, the Order of St. John. In researching these things, they all have like 1,000 names and they all have very convoluted histories, so I don't even want to try and approach it. But there's obviously the Order of St. John, and then interestingly enough, there was the mention of the Sovereign Military Hospitalier Order of St. John of Jerusalem, of Rhodes, and of Malta, which is a hell of a name. Yeah, so references obviously to real established orders that came about from our history, from our own times of the Crusades into Jerusalem and all that kind of stuff. So I think both of those were founded around like 1099 or whatever. So adjust your timeline to the Trench Crusade timeline, basically, and then go from there. But yeah, these things do exist, which might hint potentially at where we end up going with Crusaders down the line. I've no real idea, but that would be kind of pretty cool, I think, to have them echoing some of that real world stuff. Now, Krieg Sanitator, I'm pretty sure I'm pronouncing that terribly. Look, and for some reason, I'm not saying it's stereotype. My German listeners, you guys can be pretty strict when it comes to how stuff is pronounced, and maybe less humorous than especially the Italian listeners were when I was trying to, you know, battle some Italian words. So yeah, I know I'm probably pronouncing it right. Don't fret about it. It's all good. And that basically just translates as combat medic. So we know that the combat medics do everything that they can do to get you back in the fight. It's not necessarily about saving your life. It's about having you fire a few more rounds, or stab a monster in the face, or make that last charge, or whatever. That's their aim. That's their primary goal. They're not there to save your life. They're there to buy you another 5 minutes, if that's all they can buy you, and that is the priority. It's not about getting you out of there. It's about getting you standing up and moving forward again, which is something that we kind of knew. We absolutely knew that that's the way things were, but there's some nice little details in this lore. So like, they said that they carry mustard paper, which is basically a mustard plaster. It's also been known as a blister throughout history, and it's basically a poultice of mustard seed. spread into a protective dressing, apparently, and applied to the body to stimulate healing. Now, it's not necessarily going to stimulate a huge amount of healing within the time frame that we're talking about here, but what it will do is get you over initial localized pain from strains and like muscular tears and things like that. It's obviously designed to help with that. And interestingly, it's also been used for chest congestion. So maybe in some of the more chemical warfare aspects, that might break it out, help you breathe a little bit, and on you go. Now, this is what I find interesting. In the side effects that I'm reading about it, it says if left in place for too long, it can produce first-degree burns to the skin, which is interesting. So there's a genuine amount of heat being generated there, which that's some interesting take. Now they talk about ammonia, that they have like bottles of ammonia. Ammonia is used as a respiratory stimulant, basically to prevent fainting. Anyone who's ever lifted considerable weight, like not just kind of, I see people do it sometimes. I see people with reasonably low 1RMs banging ammonia as if they need it, but it's reasonably unlikely that they're gonna like pass out under the weight that they're moving. But if you've ever moved decent weight, like, you know, top percentage weight, then you may have experience with banging some ammonia to kind of stop you from basically passing out under the strain. I've done it a few times back in the day when I was 1RMing on, mostly on the deadlift, because that's what I was really able to push weight on. And it definitely, it's a fun thing. Basically, it's like, oh, you're gonna pass out, here you go, have some ammonia. You'll also see it in, well, not so much anymore, it doesn't seem to be a thing, but anybody who used to watch like old detective shows or kind of Murder Inc. shows and things like that, where somebody would get some weird news or see a body and like pass out, they would always happen to have smelling salts around and they'd wave it under your nose and wake you up. But that's it, basically. There is ammonia as a stimulant. So obviously somebody takes a whack, passes out, bop the ammonia on, bop the mustard plaster on, and then the last step, the Pervitin, where Pervitin's basically meth. It's a brand name for methamphetamine hydrochloride, a central nervous system stimulant, and that shows up a lot in war, especially around World War II era. It was notably used by the German military at the time to, you know, kind of help them deal with fatigue, especially as supply lines were getting hit and everything was going to shit. It just became this thing, basically, that was being used. I've also heard, but can't say as to whether it's true or not, that kamikaze pilots would take some, but I don't know about that one. That's just the thing I've heard. I have no idea whether that is a historical fact or not. I just feel like, were I going to be doing something crazy like that, I would probably want to be pretty fucked up on meth too. So yeah, there you go. That's how the combat medics work. They will stab the shit out of whatever is trying to kill you, or whatever has almost killed you. They'll slap some hot mustard on you. They will dose you up on meth, smack some ammonia under your nose, and just send you right back into the fight, which is perhaps not directly in line with the concept of do no harm, but it's certainly in the neighborhood, I guess. But there you go. That's Trench Crusade for you. So that's it for this video. Some really dope art this time, who looks kind of like fucked up Ryan Gosling from what I can see. So he wasn't enough in the trenches of Trench Crusade. Thank you all very much for watching. There'll be more coming over the next few weeks. I've got some fan stuff that I want to cover, and I've got some videos for Westphalia on the way. So that's going to be a lot of fun. So yeah, thank you all so much for watching. As always, like the video only if you actually liked the video. Hit the little bell if you want to see more, and curate your sub feed. Get rid of the people you don't watch, even if it's not me, you know, even if it's me, it's all good. It's all good. And stick with the people that you do watch. because life on YouTube is definitely getting harder for a lot of people right now. So, consciously find the stuff you want to watch and watch it and enjoy it. Thank you, folks.